Desert vacay or beach vacay?
Beach.
Why?
I want to look hot.
What if it's Joshua Tree? You could be wearing like a swimsuit in Joshua Tree.
I could, but no one's around to see it.
Welcome back to another episode of Interview with My Kid. I'm Arlo Sullivan, and this is my kid.
I'm Arlo.
And we're back with another amazing episode. Our guest today is so great. It's July now. We just closed out Pride Month in LA. And now we just finished 4th of July, which, isn't necessarily a celebration right now, but, it is what it is. So we're so excited to have our next guest. Our next guest is Corey Rae, the first ever trans prom queen and activist, and she does amazing at a million things, and you're gonna hear all about it. So welcome, Corey Rae.
Welcome.
We're so excited to have you on today. How are you?
I'm very well, actually.
So I know you just landed, right, from Portland?
I did.
Just visiting.
My boyfriend has a job in Portland, so I went up to visit. I've never been before.
Did you like it?
I loved it. Lots of good vegan food, better than Los Angeles.
I know, you're vegan too, right?
Yes.
Well, Arlo's like vegetarian, but I'm vegan, so
for the most part.
I love my fellow vegans.
Yeah, represent. No, it was really great. We had a really nice time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we're so excited to have you here because, your title as the first ever trans prom queen, I think is just so amazing. But you do so many other things. So tell our listeners, what the other things you list as you do.
Yeah, activism, obviously, not only for the LGBTQI plus community, but of course for the environment. It's what I'm really passionate about is helping our world become a better, safer, cleaner place to live in.
I love that.
And I model, I act, I write, produce, do public speaking.
Amazing.
Wow.
A lot of fun stuff. Yeah,
Long
and
list.
social media as well. Yeah,
And
long list.
Awesome.
Did you kind of always know you wanted to be someone that, was in the limelight that people were looking up to and listening to, or is that something that just kind of happened after you became prom queen?
Both. I think I was always destined for something greater than myself. Just always been very, very, very different than most people I've come across, and just felt something from within that was, special about myself.
Definitely.
And growing up in New Jersey, also everyone's very cookie cutter, and I'm definitely not. Although I'm a very binary trans person, I am not cookie cutter whatsoever.
Right.
And so, I definitely felt like I was going to do something greater than just work a typical 9 to 5.
Right.
But after coming out publicly and doing the blog and all of that, I definitely realized this is the right path for me for sure.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
I love that. So let's kind of start from the beginning. I think, especially when I have anyone who's, gender nonconforming or trans sitting in that chair, I really like to start at kind of their childhood, start at the beginning where this all, when did you first feel that you, weren't the gender that you were assigned at birth?
Always. I asked my mom for a Cinderella dress and Barbies at the age of 2. So I never really identified with what the doctor had assigned me at birth.
Right.
And she was all for it. She had actually thought I was going to be a girl and was very surprised and didn't really know what to do when they said oh, it's a boy. And she was just always really supportive. And she kind of thought I was going to be a girl. She had the name Julie picked out.
Oh, wow.
And she describes the moment of I have an older brother. And she describes it being very different than with having my brother. And just kind of felt like she was underwater and was very confused and she could not pick out a name for me. It took her a very long time to figure out a name. And she originally spelled it Corey. And it didn't sit right with her, and so she changed it to the unisex spelling of Crey.
Interesting.
And she just kind of always felt like something was going to be very different with me.
Wow. It's like she had that intuition as your
That's
mother.
crazy.
Yeah.
So she sounds like she was really supportive, right?
Yeah. So when I asked for the Cinderella dress and everything, that was a moment for her. She was like, oh, okay. I see why this felt so interesting to me when I was giving birth to Corey.
Gotcha.
And she kind of supported me.
I love that.
Yeah, been my fiercest protector.
When did you first, I know you said you came out publicly trans, but obviously you came out trans younger, right?
Yeah.
How old were you?
The first time was when I told my mom I was 12.
Oh, wow.
I found the word transgender during career day in school, in middle school. Mom came in to show her different advertisements in magazines, and every single kid got a different magazine. And I just so happened to get a People mag, and I was flipping through it, obviously not paying attention to whatever she was saying. And there was this story on a trans teenage boy. And I saw the word transgender, and the sentence he used, which I don't now identify with, which was that he felt trapped in the wrong body. And immediately I knew. I had been praying every night to wake up with a vagina. To me, being a woman meant vagina, which we know now today that's not necessarily true. But
I think as a kid, that's how it feels.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially going through like health, which was like wear deodorant and whatever. And I just knew that that's what I wanted. And from like probably around the fourth grade on, I was always praying to wake up as a girl. And
Amazing.
Wow.
I actually had a very similar feeling growing up. I was raised super religious, so I would like every single night cry into my pillow and pray that I would wake up a boy the next day. And I remember thinking like, I don't want to wake up like, oh, Jessie was a girl for these first 8 years and then a boy. I just want to wake up and I was a boy this whole time so that nobody would like think I was weird or anything.
Yes.
And I think like a lot of trans people go through these kinds of feelings at a young age because you can't really fully process all these feelings anyways if you're dealing with other things. So dealing with being transgender as well is a lot.
Yeah, I thought that if I were to tell anyone prior to finding the word transgender, and even after, I thought if I told someone, they would send me to an asylum. I thought I was the only person in the whole world who felt the way that I did.
Exactly.
And so finding that term in the magazine was like, oh my God, like, yes, like this is me, this is how I identify. And took the magazine home, I asked to keep it, and I read it over and over for like 2 weeks. And then I asked my mom, I was like, is this girl like covering up for being a lesbian or is this trans thing real? And she'd been waiting for me to say something. She didn't want to push anything on me. And so she's like, yeah, this is real. And then a couple days later I said, Mom, I want to be a girl. And she said, okay. And it took a really long time for her to find someone who would see me. No one wanted to talk to a trans kid at the time. Remember this, like 2006? And so it took a long time until my junior year of high school. And that's when I started to transition.
With hormones?
Not at first, no. There's a lot of different steps you had to take back then. But I started taking hormones my senior year.
Okay.
But I went on hormone blockers so that I didn't go through male puberty.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I think, something you said about like being young and kind of going through these emotions, I think it's so important because a lot of our listeners are young, are queer people, gender nonconforming, trans kids. And you said something, you were like, I thought I was going to end up in an asylum because I thought I was the only person in the world. And literally just getting the terms to know what to call yourself, what it changed in your life. Thinking one day that you're going to end up in a mental asylum to the next, being like, oh my God, there's other people like me and I'm okay. My mom actually accepts me. That's huge.
Yeah.
So I want like the young people like listening right now to know that and to feel that and know like they aren't alone.
No, yeah, they're definitely not. Especially, it's hard to be alone now with social media. But no, for sure, it was a different time, and I'm very grateful for it. But I'm also happy that we have so much access to information and education now.
Absolutely,
means that all the stuff I had to go through is worth it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Like Arlo's generation is definitely dealing with a lot of these issues differently than we did.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely still a ton of issues, but there's
sometimes, and now it might be worse. I didn't have to deal with bathroom laws, or I was able to get I wasn't easy, but access to hormone blockers, which is such a big issue in the country today. And I think
they made it an issue.
Yes, and it's so important. Like I wouldn't have transitioned the way I transitioned and been so happy if I didn't have those blockers and like the right to my own body, which we now know is not really poppin' here in America.
And socially, sometimes it's difficult as well. There's like I was just talking about this in one of the last episodes. How like there's just still a ton of issues even in my generation. Like there's a lot of Gen Zs who are homophobic and transphobic, and it's horrible. And I wish we could progress a little bit. And I think we are in some ways for sure, but.
I definitely think we progressed a lot. And
it takes a long time.
It does.
It does take a long time.
Very long time.
And it takes a lot of people like you standing up and using your voice and telling your story.
I didn't think that we would even be talking about being transgender until I was in my 40s or 50s. Yeah. When I was transitioning and I was talking to my therapist about it, we decided I would tell my boyfriend probably when I was getting engaged. I would not tell my children until a certain age. Like, I had no idea that this new wave of the trans liberation movement was going to happen.
No, yeah, and there's definitely like a lot of progression in certain ways, for sure. And like you said, though, it does take a long time.
Yeah.
And it will, sadly, but there is some ways that are better.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you know, like you said, like you thought you were going to only talk about that like way later on in life or something, and was it this kind of, this new culture of people being open about being trans that did that? Or like what was kind of that thing for you that...
Sure. Say what you want about her and her political beliefs, but the transgender community owes Caitlyn Jenner for opening up the conversation of what it means to be transgender. I do not agree with her on anything.
Right.
And I think she is not the most accurate representation of what it does mean to be transgender, but
Definitely.
Opening up that conversation, what she did for us was so courageous and was so incredible and gave me the strength to tell my story publicly. I was living stealth for 5 years. I didn't tell a soul in college and a year after college, and kept it from my boyfriend in college and from my friends and jobs.
Mind if I ask, what did she do that made you feel more comfortable and that you thought was like
talking
cool?
about it,
Just
opening up, being in Vanity
Being
Fair.
public about it. Got it.
No one was doing that. There was Amanda Lepore, who you only knew if you were involved in New York nightlife, and although I love her, and Laverne Cox was in Orange is the New Black, but that was about it. And every other trans representation was. And as important as it is to talk about the horrible things that happen to trans people, specifically trans women of color, it's also important to share the positive stories. And we were not talking about that.
Definitely.
And no one knew what transgender was. When I was transitioning, people were like, oh, is that gay?
Yeah.
I was like, no, it's not gay. Like, it's a whole other ballgame.
No, yeah.
And what Caitlyn did was really open up that conversation and get people talking, because
I
people
agree
weren't
with
even
that.
talking about it.
I agree
They
with
just didn't want to go there. It was, you're a cross-dresser, you're a tranny, something's wrong with you, you're a thief, you're a rapist. That was the conversation.
Pervert,
And it seems like it was such a short time ago, but it really opens up like that whole conversation on a big scale, because Caitlyn was an American hero, an Olympian, a part of the Kardashian franchise. I mean, this was a huge celebrity, and we did not have that then. And as amazing as Laverne is, for being in Orange is the New Black, that's so incredible. Like, it's just a Netflix show. It was a huge Netflix show, and it was phenomenal, and what she is so iconic, but Caitlyn Jenner was a whole other level. And so it got people really talking about it, and it made me feel like, oh, okay, people are talking about it. And then I'd be in the room with people who were talking so negatively about trans people, and I was sitting there and I was like, if only you knew who you were talking in front of.
Seriously.
And then I was like, I gotta tell these people, because if I don't do something, people aren't going to understand that trans people can be young and beautiful and sexy and supported and
happy and
cool and successful.
Yeah, exactly. Like, one of the things I always am trying to show with my social media platforms is that I'm an older trans person with a family who's happy and successful. Like, I exactly what you were saying. Trans people are always shown in such a negative light, especially like before.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I even, as a trans person, only saw them that way and it's scary and it's so like fear-based, because it makes you like, oh my God, is that going to happen to me? And I've had young people reach out to me and be like, I'm young and I'm scared, because I always thought I was never going to have a family when I was older, and I was like, you absolutely can.
Absolutely.
Like, and I think that's why it's so important for conversations like this to happen, and everything you said, I 100% agree with. And I think, I disagree with her politics 100% as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's a lot of problematic situations going on there, but she did open up that conversation, and you're right, it's because America and the world saw her as this American hero, and this and so it's a big deal.
And that's not, it doesn't mean just because you're trans you're a good person. You can still be a bad person.
No, absolutely.
You might be a thief, I don't know. But it's,
But it has nothing to do with the fact that you're trans.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Which is something.
Trans people are just people.
Yeah.
Trans kids are just kids.
And that's actually something that I really want people to understand, just in general, is like, people be like, oh, well, like, people talk about whatever, like gay people fight all the time with each other, but it's like, that has nothing to do with the fact that they're gay. Or like people will be like, well, they're mean to each other, so like why do we have to like try to like be so like nice in front of them? It's like, they're not being mean to each other because they're gay. Like, what?
Interesting. Infighting has a really long history because let's take the gay community and the transgender community. The gay community did ostracize transgender people during the gay liberation movement because they felt like trans people would halt them from getting their rights. It's the same thing with TERFs, right? These trans exclusionary, right? So like,
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, we
J.K.
touched
Rowling,
on that before.
We don't like you. We don't claim you. So yeah, it's exactly the same thing. Women think that, oh, trans women are going to stop us from getting our rights. Like, there's always been infighting, especially amongst the trans community, because trans women are now, I'll speak for trans women specifically, like, we've been pivoted against each other. We have to get the best man. We have to be the most passable. We have to look, act, talk the best way. We have to be the most successful, because if we don't, we won't survive.
Right.
So it's unfortunate that, yes, we are fighting in front of each other because it doesn't set a good precedent for other people. But at the same time, we've been conditioned to fight with each other because we need to compete.
Oh, yeah. And when I mean fight, I just even mean, like I've heard people, like, the reason that I brought that up is because people will, like, two gay people will literally just be fighting, not even have anything to do with LGBTQ, but literally just how it would be the same if anybody else in this room fought with each other. And people will be like, well, if they're being mean to each other, then like, why do like cis, like whatever people, like straight people have to act like all nice in front of them? I've heard people say stuff like that before. And I'm like, they're not fighting though, because they're not fighting because they're LGBTQ.
People.
They're just people fighting.
Right.
It would have been the same if literally anybody else fought.
But I think what you said is so true about infighting. Like, it definitely happens, and I think it is like we are conditioned to do
for
these
sure.
things. And I do think like the difference there is. I talked about this so many times. I just did a documentary about like my life and like raising Arlo as a trans man, and one of the things the director asked me about was like a lot of like trans women issues, and I kept saying the same thing over and over again. I was like, I can speak as a trans man, but I was like, their experience is so different than mine.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important, because I think people just think if you're trans, it's all the same. Like things I go through are going to be so different than things you go through.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think there's definitely a discrepancy there to like the situations you would deal with.
Yeah, I mean, the whole transition process is different. And I say all the time to people, like, no two people on planet Earth are the same. No two transgender people are going to be the same. No two transitions are going to be the same. But medically, scientifically, like, there's so many differences in the trans male experience and the trans female experience, and it's not fair. But like, there are big differences, and that's why I try to like correct myself and say I'm only speaking for a trans woman right now. Because
totally.
I can't speak for your experience.
Right. And I can't speak for yours. Like, I got asked, on a dating app, would you put that you're transgender, because a lot of trans women don't want to put that they're trans on the app. They want to like tell the guy later on, and I was like, that. I can't. How could I speak for them? They're what a trans woman would go through if they got outed on a dating app versus me is probably very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Well, more just danger is danger, but like, I think we have a little bit more fear as a woman.
Just as a woman,
there's more fear in this world. Yeah, for sure. It's dangerous for us.
Yeah, because I also got asked like, oh, like now that you are passing as a man, like, do you feel like safe running at night, like, or taking a jog, like, without like worrying like to bring pepper spray or whatever? And I was like, you know what? No, because my brain is like conditioned for all those years to fear men. So I think like, at the end of the day, it's just really men.
Yeah. Also, like, running at night's probably not safe for anyone.
Especially
like,
in LA.
Honest.
If you're in LA,
in
don't
downtown.
do that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so you grew up on the East Coast, right?
Yes.
What was that like? So were you out to like the world in your community at 12, or was it just like family?
Yeah.
Just my mom.
Just your mom.
And I mean, the thing was that our family was like, oh, Corey's gay.
No.
But my mom kept saying like, no, there's something more here. Yeah. So when I did tell my family, which is between, let's say, the 8th grade and junior year of high school, everyone was like, this makes sense for Corey, which is what everyone ended up saying. Because I didn't change. My personality didn't change, just my appearance.
Right.
It just made sense for me. Even though people didn't know what it was, they were like, oh, I don't know. You're probably just trying to get attention, but it makes sense for you, so whatever. And so it was hard because I'm very originally from Los Angeles, which is a way more progressive place than Millburn, Short Hills, New Jersey. And when I moved to New Jersey, I was in the middle of the 2nd grade, and I was still playing with Barbies and playing dress up, and parents were really hard on me and were like yelling at my mom, like, why is your son playing dress up with my daughter? Why are they playing with makeup and Barbies? Like, this is weird. And I started to take that on and realize like something's wrong with me because these parents are so my mom would be picking me up from play dates or their kid, whatever, and these conversations would happen in front of me.
Oh my God.
Or we'd be in the mall and I'd be holding a Barbie and some guy from the gym would be like, shame on you for like letting your child have a Barbie. And my mom was like, my mom literally goes, shame on you.
Yeah.
Or my kindergarten
Love your
teacher.
mom.
I love my mom. My kindergarten teacher, this was actually in California. My kindergarten teacher had already had my brother who she loved. And I, during recess, was playing dress up with the girls. And my kindergarten teacher told me I wasn't allowed to do it. And I went home and told my mom. And my mom went in the next day and said, don't you ever tell my child what they can or cannot do in their free time. And like my mom was always my protector. So I knew that I would be protected in that way and supported, but it was the outside world that was really tough. And New Jersey's a hard place.
Yeah.
And it was a really, 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 a town with opulent wealth and cookie cutter families and people who just they were conservative and didn't want to understand.
Like keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, and it was the parents that had a really difficult time. The kids were like, whatever, but the parents were really hard on me and my mom.
I always tell this to people because I have like 16 nieces and nephews, and when I transitioned, they were like, oh, you used to be a girl and now you're a boy, and I was like, yep, and they're like, okay, said he. I was a boy from then on, never questioned it.
Yeah.
Kids like are usually pretty easy about it. It's the adults.
My little cousin, how old was he? How old was Ben when you?
Like probably 3 or 4.
Yeah, and he was so chill about it. He just started using he and like.
He even would correct my like family members who would say she. He would be like, excuse me, it's he. And I was like, I love it.
That's so cute.
Yeah, but I think,
something that I have noticed just in general about kids, like little kids, is that they're more accepting when they're very little. And then once they just start getting a few years older, I can see that it starts to change because society and school and everything, they start to pick up on things and they start to see a difference, and now it's more of a thing to them.
Totally.
And I've noticed that a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's usually like very, very young kids who are more accepting of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
how it goes.
So in 2010, you became the first trans prom queen. Before that, were you out in high school?
Yeah. That year, coming out is a loose term. I kind of just transitioned and let everyone kind of catch on.
I love that.
It was before I had gotten into therapy, but it was my junior year of high school, and my mom just like really saw the weight of the world weighing heavily on me, and I was just starting to not be the happy kid anymore that I was, and she had asked me that summer if I wanted to start growing my hair out, and I said yes, and I was really excited about that. My mom was a hairdresser.
Oh, awesome.
So we started growing out my hair, and I was taking fashion design classes at FIT already, and I was just really being more, I was always effeminate, but I was just like really, like it was almost like a box of femininity being rattled, and it was going to explode at any second.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really contain it anymore. And I wanted to start dressing how I wanted to dress. And so she asked if I wanted to start wearing her clothes. So
gotcha.
She's like shorter with like an hourglass body, and I was like taller, like stick. So her clothes kind of looked androgynous on me. Her jeans, I started with her tops and then her jeans, like cardigans, things like that. And it was a really slow progression, actually. It wasn't like I came to school one day and it was fully in like a female outfit.
Yeah.
It was really slow, and I didn't think I needed to be respectful to anyone else, but I didn't want anyone to just like freak out. I just like wanted to do my own thing. And so it was a really slow process. And then eventually towards the spring, I was like wearing mascara and a bra and things like that. And people started to ask questions like, do you just want attention? Like, are you gay? I said, no, and I would tell a few people like, oh, I'm trans. They didn't know what that was. They didn't understand it. And so kind of just kept doing my thing. And, but yeah, I would say out in the sense of they could see me physically transitioning. And I had started seeing a therapist in January and like got on hormone blockers pretty quickly because I was a late bloomer and I was just starting to go through puberty.
Gotcha.
So we wanted to catch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so it was basically like your dream to become prom queen, is that right? Like, is that something you really wanted and then you're like, I'm going for it, or?
Yeah, my stepbrother was prom king.
Okay.
When I was little, I saw him come home with like flowers and the whole thing, and I was like, that looks cool.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend was super popular, and she was, I think, prom queen, or she wasn't prom queen. I just remember the drama of like him winning prom queen and she didn't, whatever. And I always idolized these classic underdog prom stories. She's all that, never been kissed.
Those are great movies.
And I loved these cool, what I saw was these like white, cis, het, blonde, pretty rich girls, and I wanted to be that. And I thought that's what being a woman was. I thought being a woman was Regina George and Cher and Elle Woods. And so I thought, oh, okay, guys and people like dumb blondes who they can fear a little bit. And so I started to emulate that. And I just, during my transition, and I started realizing like, oh, maybe I could run for prom queen and make that, you know, dream a reality.
Right.
And so I ran and I won.
That's
Amazing.
awesome.
And so was that easy? Where did people like fight you on it? Were they like?
The thing is that I wasn't the most popular girl in school. I had some friends in a bunch of different groups, and I would say that I was well liked in that way. And so it was easy because I was friends with all the girls. I think the guys stopped really wanting me, and I was really popular at one point, and the guys were like, we don't want Corey at parties anymore, like we're freaked out by Corey. It was more like the guys, but then they kind of told him like, you can't really give me shit or I'll tell the girls not to hook up with you. So I had a little adversity with my classmates. I remember this one girl, the really hyper popular girl, I won 99% of the votes.
Wow.
And she voted for me for prom king and tried rallying a group of people to vote for me for prom king. That was like—
What's her name?
Jessica Sales.
You're like, I will plug that.
Don't sue me for defamation, but whatever. Yeah, she was the worst. No one liked her, but everyone, you know, thought she was popular, and she was that pretty blonde girl who I wanted to be, you know. So her doing that to me, I was like, and it was hard. I mean, people talked behind my backs. I remember one time this girl said to me like, oh, I can see your balls through your skirt. And I was like, no, you can't. I was like, and I literally told her to go shave her back. Like, I loved Mean Girls. I was like, you can go shave your back.
I mean, this is so interesting. This kind of like, I hear a lot of like my like trans female friends in LA with like stories like this, but like to put this in like the high school context is like so just amazing and interesting, and like I'm like loving hearing this. So like you were just like slapping back and like
that was the thing. Like I have always demanded respect from people. I don't care how young or how old or how stupid you think I am or how smart. I always demand respect. I think everyone deserves respect. And I was not going to let people walk all over me. And I think I put on a really hard front, which I work through now in therapy, because I didn't want people to walk all over me. And if I knew that if I was the kind, sweet soul that I am around high schoolers, they were going to
eat you alive.
Yeah, and I didn't want that. And so I thought it'd rather be feared and be seen as like a bitch than not. And I definitely took on a Regina George mindset for years, and it's taken a really long time to get out of that, or it took a long time to get out of that.
Yeah.
And do you think just like getting older and just experiencing life and therapy and all these things kind of just got you to be like, you know what, I can be a sweet person? Because I can tell just even when we were talking out there, like you're so obviously a kind, sweet soul. Like it radiates off of you. So is that something you know, found later on because of that, or?
Yeah, I studied abroad in Amsterdam in college, and that was the first, you know, it was post-transition, post-surgery, and it was the first time I'd met other trans people, and I wrote a research paper on the difference between transitioning in the Netherlands and the US. It was for school. I was a sociology minor, and in interviewing other trans people, I realized like, oh, trans people have been around since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I became really at peace with myself and thought, okay, I always wondered why, even after my transition, why me? Why did I have to be born transgender? Why couldn't I have just been born what we now know as a cis? I used to say normal.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I was put in this body in this lifetime to change people's perceptions of what it means to be transgender.
Absolutely.
And I realized that in Amsterdam and became more at peace with myself. And so I was able to be more at peace in life and didn't feel the need to put on a really hard exterior anymore. And being in therapy, I've been in some pretty intense therapy for the past 2.5 years. That's really helped. And falling in love has really softened me. And
I love that.
yeah.
I'm a firm believer in therapy. I
Me
tell
too.
everyone, like, pretty much everyone should be in therapy. I think it does wonders.
I agree. At
and-
some point.
Yeah, at some point. And I'm also a firm believer in love, so I love that you're in love.
Yeah,
That's
me
really
too.
sweet. We talked a little bit about it, but you said you met him at a show, correct? Like a concert?
My boyfriend, yeah, outside of a concert.
Amazing, I love that.
Yeah.
How long, and you guys have been together for, you said, like 7
months, yeah.
Amazing.
Wow.
November.
Love can do a lot for you. I think also, like, I've talked to the producers of this show about this. Like, I always want to highlight queer love because I think that it's so, like, a lot of stories and stuff don't tell it in the right way. And I think the
Right.
young people, like, listening and watching right now,
It's important.
like, it's so important because think of
Yes.
being, like, 12, like we were, and thinking, like, yeah, no one's going to love me when I'm older if I do this.
That's why I thought I would have to live stealth my whole life and
Yeah.
not like tell my husband. Kind of like Nikki tutorials. Like
Yeah.
that was a preview into what my life could have been like.
Right.
And it made me sad. And I always wondered, like, oh my God, am I gonna like have to grow up and like be a guy and like be gay? Because I don't feel gay. And
Right.
it was really, really, really hard. And I did not know that I could fall in love. And actually the first time that I was really truly in love was my senior year of college when I was still living stealth. And he did not know until a year after we broke up. And that's when I really was also starting to soften because I was falling in love in the first time and I
Right.
felt like I was being loved for who I am without any other condition. And that was amazing. But at the same time, he didn't really know me like a whole other, and being transgender is not all of me,
Right.
but it is a big part of who I am. And I love that I could be loved for me and my personality and like all those things and my beauty, like that's all great and fine. But my boyfriend now like genuinely loves me so much and like
Yeah.
for
I
all of me. And
love that.
it's so special. And I did not know that a love like this could exist. And it makes me really happy. And like,
You're gonna
I'm
melt my
excited. And I'm excited for your generation and all the generations to come. And it makes me very, very proud that I could find someone like this.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do think it's so important for like those young people to know that like someone will absolutely love
Of
all of them.
course.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, like our generation, we kind of had to like go through all these experiences. Like I came out as like lesbian first and like
Right.
then non-binary and all these different
Right.
things. And I had to go through all this to get where I am now. And now I'm like so fulfilled and so sure of who I am. And it attracted someone in my life as well who also like loves me 100% for all of me. And I want like young people to know that like you might have a journey, you might be going through different like phases and different experiences, but at the end of it, like I promise, like there's that love for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. And this is kind of off topic, but I'm kind of curious if you're comfortable sharing. What did you wear to prom?
Oh God. I wore a Forever 21 dress, which is fast fashion. I don't support that anymore. But it was my best friend's dress. And I was trying it on because I could not find anything to wear.
Gotcha.
And her mom came in and she was like, oh, that looks better on you. You should wear it. Karen will find another dress.
Oh, wow.
And so I wore it. It was a black one-shouldered short
Wow.
Forever 21 dress. And she had pinned kind of like a boutonniere on it, actually. It was like a fake flower. So I wore a boutonniere and a corsage. And black Steve Madden, or what Madden girl, like ruched Madden girl black shoes. We're all black.
Oh, I love that. That's our vibe for
yeah,
sure.
you guys can tell. Yeah.
Was that moment
cool.
when they like crowned you? Was that just like the like a highlight?
Yeah, it was like the movie moment I'd always waited for.
That's
Or is it like the
awesome. That's so
confetti and
cool.
like the like,
Yeah, it was very validating. Obviously, I felt seen and understood by my peers
Right.
and by the school, who were really, for the time, quite phenomenal with everything. And that night gave me the knowledge that if I really wanted something and I put my heart and soul into it and I worked hard for it, I could make my dreams come true. And
Yes.
that was that experience. I was like, okay, dreams can come true. And
Yeah.
and it was awesome, and I'm really really happy about it.
I think dreams also take courage, and I think that was such like a courageous thing to do because I think there's so many young people that would be like so scared to even try, attempt that, and like so I think, you know, in life in general, like if you really want things, you have to take those kind of scary steps.
Absolutely, no risk, no reward.
Nope, I agree. So then after all this happened, what was kind of next in your life? You moved back to LA. or?
Well, after high school, I went to college. I went to Hofstra. I studied public relations and sociology. And I was there for 4 years, obviously with 6 months in Amsterdam, my junior year. But I had surgery after my freshman year of college. So between freshman and sophomore year, I went through the surgery process, which was incredible, very difficult and excruciatingly painful, but well worth it.
Yeah.
It changed my life. My life could not move forward without surgery. And for me, that was my version of complete. And yeah, I went through college. And then, of course, my senior year, Caitlyn Jenner came out towards the end of my senior year. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to tell my story, like somehow. Graduated college, and for a year I was working in a hospitality job in New York City that I hated and was really struggling with what to do with my life. I knew that was not for me.
Right.
And I was making an online modeling portfolio on a website. I got the domain CoreyRae.com and built a Squarespace site that was just going to be for modeling. But I was also writing what I thought was going to be the first chapter of my book, where I would have told the world I was trans.
Wow.
But then the Pulse nightclub shooting happened in Orlando, Florida in June 2016.
I remember this clear as day.
Yeah, and that was really hard for me. It was the first attack I had seen on the LGBTQ plus community in my adult life or young adult life. And I realized, like, okay, we're under attack, and I've got to do something about this.
Right.
Like, even if I could just tell a few people, that would. I was also struggling with keeping my high school friends separate from my college friends, and it was really hard. I mean, I lived 2 separate lives.
Right.
And I work now through therapy. It's about the damage that I did by living stealth.
Right.
Of course, I did it out of security and safety and wanting to live this normal lifestyle. But it was really hard on me. And I wanted just all these things I just needed a release.
Yeah.
And so I combined the modeling portfolio with my first chapter of my book and made it a blog.
Okay, gotcha.
And I published the blog on my website and posted it to Facebook. And someone I went to high school with worked for Yahoo, and they syndicated the article and then did a follow-up interview. And the title was World's First Transgender Prom Queen Comes Out About Being Trans Before It Was Trendy, which is like the trendy thing, not so PC these days, but for the time it was a big deal. And that went viral, and the post went viral. And
That's amazing.
I was kind of put on this role of trans activist, trans writer. And I was like, oh my God, like I just thought Facebook was gonna know, And so, it kind of thrust me into the more public life and started working on my Instagram. And then I moved to LA in January 2017 and was modeling and writing. I had a fashion dating advice column on Stylecaster and was blogging and modeling and doing all those things. And then I had like a video feature in Vogue.com during Pride Month. And then that kind of spiraled into a modeling campaign with Ipsy.
I love it.
And then Ipsy asked me to do some Instagram stuff. And then
Here
the
you
rest
are.
is history, yeah.
I love that. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think like what that shows is that moment of like wanting that release for your own personal self to like put that first chapter on the blog.
Yeah.
Like, look what that did. It's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
snowball effect after that. And then having the courage to then post that on Facebook. And I think that's something that's so true. We were just talking about that in the last episode, is like making those decisions to be so fully who you are. Yeah, and I don't think every queer or trans person has to do this. I know a lot of people would like just want to be, stealth or subtle and like living in their quiet life, and that's perfectly fine. But I think people like us that do, I think it's just so important, because I think it really, like, you see how the world actually responds so positively for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like and we all get haters, I get them. I get like pretty horrible comments, but I always tell myself I get more love than hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Earlier, you were like, at that time, Legally Blonde and Regina George and all that, you're like, that's what I thought a woman was. What would you say now at you're 31?
29.
29. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Aging is a privilege, especially as a trans person.
Exactly.
I say being a woman is whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
If you identify as a woman, then
You're a woman.
whatever it wants.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's any which way that we should have to act, talk, walk, or be.
Yeah.
I would say that there is something to be said about the divine feminine and feeling like a woman. I think it's a really cool thing and very unifying. But I don't think it should, and I don't think it does look one way at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is nice, because I really was conditioned to feel like this was the one way to be a woman.
Right.
And I'm happy. I mean, I literally am my own dream come true. I
Yeah.
never,
You're your own Barbie. Oh, I was
Yeah.
gonna say I saw your Instagram post about the Barbies, and you're like, now I am the Barbie that like, I wanted as
I
a
never
kid,
thought
and
this could be possible.
I love that. I like.
Yeah.
You know, I really, really never thought that this was a possibility, and it's really cool.
It is
Yeah.
so cool. They're
Yeah.
gonna bleep that out, but
Okay.
worth it.
Deeply, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, same thing, like as a trans man, I think I was also conditioned to like it be like super hyper masculine and like, I think we're a lot of trans men are conditioned to be that way. But I was like, you know what? I don't feel like this crazy masculine person. I'm still gonna dye my hair colors. I'm still gonna
Sure.
paint my nails. And like,
Yeah.
I've just always kind of been like a more feminine boy. And I think that's where I'm comfortable.
I think because a lot of people in society have this thing with trans people, like trans men, like, oh, if you're feminine, that's just you like being a girl or like you like acting like a girl,
Sure.
versus what the response would be if like a feminine gay guy acts feminine,
Totally.
which I've seen a lot before. Like when a feminine like gay guy acts, like hyper feminine, people are like, oh, cool, like he whatever, But like when a trans man does it, they act like it's him wanting to be like a girl again or something.
Right.
And it's very strange. I've seen it a lot.
Yeah, and that's why I said earlier, like, I'm a very binary trans woman.
Yeah.
I love getting my nails done and wearing pink, and like, I'm very feminine, but I've always been that way.
Yeah.
Being transgender
Right.
has not, or transitioning rather, has not made me more feminine. It's
Right.
just who I am, and
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
great. And then there's some trans women who don't want surgery or even be on hormones or, whatever. And like, there's just no one which way to be
Right.
anyway.
And I think
person.
something people forget, you kind of said this before, but it's like they forget with trans people, they think like once you transition, you become a different person. But you're
Yeah.
like, I've always been this person. I have always been this exact person.
Right,
Like
exactly.
literally,
Yeah.
like, so when I had like family members have like, oh, I feel like I lost you and it's not the same. I'm like, that's your projection.
Yeah.
Because this is more me than I've ever been.
Exactly.
Like literally the only difference is like
Exactly.
my voice is deeper and,
Right.
have more facial hair.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
So we ask every guest the same questions because we love these two questions and we
Right.
think they're so cute, and it kind of wraps up our listeners to kind of just know who you are and
Okay.
and kind of like sign it off. And then after this, we're gonna play a fun little game. But Arlo, go ahead and ask the first question.
What is one single thing that you would want to be known for after you leave this earth? It can be anything.
Changing the way people perceive and treat transgender women.
Love
I
it.
want people to know
Love
that
it.
we can be hot and cool and fun and sexy and successful and happy and lived very fulfilled lives.
I love that.
That's
That's
awesome.
an amazing thing to leave this earth because
Yeah.
I think the earth needs it.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the second one, do you think 10-year-old Corey would be proud of Corey now?
Oh yeah. I think I'd be floored. I'd be like, wow, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd be really proud of myself and just the whole journey. I mean, I've had a lot of moments where I'm not so proud of myself, but all of it's been really well worth it. And I think I've done a really good job. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel very proud.
We're proud of you. And I think 10-year-old Corey would be jumping
Oh,
up
for
and down.
sure.
Thank you.
For sure.
And so now let's play like a fun little game. It's gonna be
Okay.
a kind of another like get to know you game.
Okay.
Which one are we doing?
This or that. So I'm
Okay.
just gonna ask you this or that. Coffee date or arcade date?
Oh, for a first date? Mm-hmm. Arcade.
Yeah.
That's a
date.
great answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's way more fun.
Yeah.
There's so many more things to do
Yeah, I
than
can
just
get
like
coffee
sit and
with
talk.
anyone in the
Yeah,
night.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, New York Pride or LA Pride?
Oh, don't do this to me. New York, I think.
Yeah, I haven't been to New York Pride, but I've heard amazing things.
Yeah.
What,
New York Pride.
What about it do you like better?
Although the energy in LA Pride is great, there is something different about LA. And also you're like walking past the Stonewall Inn and like,
Yeah.
and there's just so much more pride and you feel like it started there and you can
Right.
Right.
feel Sylvia and Marsha there.
Yeah,
Like
no,
it's
Yeah.
the history and the vibe and yeah, New York, there's nothing like strutting down a New York street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so like imagine it on Pride.
Arlo
Yeah.
hasn't been to New York yet, and they're like obsessed with like old buildings and
Yeah,
city life. And I was
Yeah.
like,
amazing.
I bought
Yeah.
them tickets for Christmas, and they got like flight anxiety, and we didn't end up going. But I've been
Don't
like, trying
put
to
me
get
out
them
there like
I
that.
mean, I
Don't
also
put
have
me out
flight
there.
anxiety, so I get it. But you need to go.
I know.
Yeah,
I
I
want them to
do
see it so bad.
eventually. I do. Yeah.
I feel like I know the answer to this one because we kind of talked earlier.
Okay.
But dating app or IRL?
IRL, in real life. I believe in dating app meets, like my brother and his wife, but I think an organic meet, for me personally, is what's
Yeah.
best.
I feel like it's just so
And it's cooler.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a better story to tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I need to
Absolutely.
feel an energy from someone and vice versa.
Yeah, definitely. That's
you
what I
never know
always
what's gonna
say about,
happen.
like,
Yeah, exactly.
like when everyone was doing Zoom meetings, I said the same thing. I was like, I can't vibe off of people the same way. Like I need to
No.
like see and feel and
Yeah.
like hear. Yeah. Okay, desert vacay or beach vacay?
Beach.
Why?
I want to look hot.
You're gonna be in what if it's Joshua Tree? You could be wearing like a swimsuit in Joshua Tree.
I could, but no one's around to see it.
It's very like deserted. Literally.
I also love, like, I'm very afraid of the ocean, but I love being by the water, and there's just
Gotcha.
something
Obsessed.
very calming about it. Yeah, beach for sure.
Yeah, I would actually say the
Bathing
same thing.
I worked way too hard to be in a bathing suit to be in Joshua Tree.
I know. Exactly.
Although I love it, Joshua Tree's great.
I
but
love it too. I know I haven't gotten my top surgery yet, and I swear to God, the first moment I walk out on a beach without a shirt,
It's the best.
I can't wait. It's like something I think about probably 50 times a day.
Yeah, wearing that's what actually got me through. So this might be TMI, but during the surgery process, you have to get electrolysis on anything that's on the outside that's going on the
Yes,
inside.
I've heard this, yeah.
And what got me through the electrolysis process and even just the injection to numb you was I would literally scream out like, I'm gonna be in a bathing suit, I'm gonna be in a bathing suit, I'm gonna be in a bathing suit. Like that moment of like going to Victoria's Secret and buying underwear and bathing suits and then
Yes.
being on the beach, it was nothing can top that. Well,
Exactly.
besides prom queen and some other things.
Yeah.
Top moment for
Yes,
sure.
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, that's what I'm like. I'm super scared of surgery. So like, my top surgery is coming up. So every time I get scared, I'm like, beach.
It's gonna be
pool,
worth it.
Gym.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Lady Gaga or Celine Dion?
Lady Gaga, because Born This Way was the first song I ever heard that had transgender in it.
Yeah. I love that song.
And also
I
she's
still
just
get
iconic.
chills when I
Yeah,
hear that
Lady
song.
Gaga for sure.
Yeah,
For
I love
sure.
Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
Trixie Mattel or Gottmik?
I'm
I'm friends
really,
with Gottmik, so
I don't watch RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm a really bad community member, but I did see Trixie recently, and she's fabulous, and I love her whole Barbie brand,
Yes.
and I love the Barbie brand, so I'm gonna go with Trixie because of all the
Yeah.
pink, and I love the branding, like the
Yeah.
motel or the hotel, like I love it. Smart businesswoman. Let's go with Trixie.
seriously, for sure.
Yeah.
Sneakers or heels?
Um,
That's hard because you showed up here with both.
I did. I showed up in pink sneakers and I'm wearing pink heels. Heels, because little Corey would say that. Let's go with that. Heels.
Love it.
Cute.
And it fits the whole Barbie vibe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, this was so fun.
This was
Thank you
so
so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you go ahead and look into that camera and plug your socials so that everyone can find you because you're amazing. We want the world to see you. And I know a lot of people already do, but let's tell more people.
Yeah. Get the followers. You can find me on Instagram at I'm Corey Rae, TikTok at Corey Rae, and my website, CoreyRae.com.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Interview with My Kid. Don't forget to follow us on all streaming platforms and follow us on the Past Your Bedtime YouTube channel.